Hello. Today is the first Monday Fun Day for me in a while. Not for you. For you, nothing has happened, but for me, this is a fresh recording session. So if I'm missing anything, it's up to you guys to figure it out. And if you have no idea what I am talking about, on Monday Fun Day, I talk about whatever I want, and for the past forever, it's been me talking about a story called Crow Story. The plan is to eventually make it into a webtoon kind of thing, but that's far in the future. It's being drawn right here is The Books of Avo, which is my novel. It's also getting a webtoon adaptation right now, and that's what you're seeing being drawn. So check out either of those if you want to see what I do. In the meantime, we are talking Monday Fun Day, right? And where I left off talking, we were still going into the major continent of the world of Crow Story, and that is the major country, the Empire, the Divine Kingdom of the Lindworm, and we were going through all of the provinces. Today we're going to go over a few more religions, because we were talking about Faymouth, which is a territory kind of province. It's a lot more rural, sparse, goes up into like the northern, more Arctic regions. So we're going to talk about the last two religions, the last two major religions that are practiced there. And then we move on, and we are swiftly approaching the end of the Divine Kingdom. Okay, we have like 2 or 3 more provinces to go over, and after that, I don't know. It's a choose your own adventure, and I thought I could ask you right now, right here, what you would be interested in. So we can either, after we're done with the Lindworm, we can either go north to the Silven Forest, which is a free kind of land from the Lindworm as of now. I think has been mentioned before, yeah, there's like some brewings of civil war and stuff there. Or we can move to the duchies of Thane and Hazel, which are 2 distinct kind of countries that are kind of under the umbrella of the Lindworm. So they're southern and they tend to be a lot more hearth. And I think they're going to be a lot quicker to get through. But whatever you want, choose your own adventure, leave a comment down below. I don't imagine a lot of new viewers are going to be watching this kind of episode. It's so in the middle, so I figured it's a great time to talk to y'all about what's going on. Right, so let's get into it. So the first religion we are going to discuss is the Descendants of Ash. So they live within the Silven Forest. There's also a significant population in Faymouth that is currently kind of being like taken over by the Lindworm Kingdom, as it does. And as the name suggests, they believe that they are descendants of the steward Ash. So if you recall, the stewards are 12 god things that represent the 12 different elements within the world. And Ash is the earth nature element. So they believe that they are descendants of Ash. And they also believe in the creation story that is common in fawn beliefs, like common fawn beliefs. And for like a very quick catch up on that, that's the one where there was Zidwan who made the world by swallowing all of the stewards and bringing them together to create the egg of Shunaden. Yeah, I know. If you were just jumping in, wow. But yeah, they believe that a snake came, ate all the gods, squished them together in an egg, and now the world is that egg. And yeah, that's the basics of it. A major difference for the Descendants of Ash is that they believe that all of the creatures of the world and like all of nature was kind of already created by the steward Ash before it ended up getting eaten by Zidwan. Before the snake ate it, their god had already created a bunch of stuff. It wasn't fully realized as the world is right now for them, but it was like a proto world almost. And they believe that the first beings were a race of foxes that were exceptionally cunning, and those were the chosen children of Esha, which is what they call Esha, and all other elves were then based off of them. So they were the first. They were the descendants of the first people. And as such, they believe that they are closer to Esha than all other fauns. I feel like I say this every time, but this world is split up into 12 elements, right? And so there are elves, which are mages, and then there are fauns, which are people that have like animal traits, and each element exists on like a spectrum. There's a specific animal for every element, and there's a specific set of powers, and everyone lives on that spectrum. So they believe that the fox fauns, the Silven fauns, are the most close to Esha. And they believe that because of this, Esha is willing to listen to their prayers. And it's further believed that other gods, they don't listen. They're not willing. So every god ended up making their own version of the elves, which is how they kind of explain all of the different elemental and different types of fauns in the world. So each god created them, but only Esha still cares about what he created. And Esha is just kind of the basis of all life as it stands. So everyone is still kind of created by Esha, but influenced by a different god. And so what they do is they pray to Esha, and it is essential for a good life. Esha can make trees bloom, he can heal injuries, he can cure illness and create life. And there's just so much that Esha can do. There is a lot that he can't do, a lot of things he can't control, because he is not the god. He's one of many gods and has his own kind of thing going on. But a lot can be aided by Esha, and Esha is very adaptive, and Esha can help shield from like the negative things like Eventide, which is like death, the death element, and Tempest, which is like disaster. So that's why you pray to Esha, because Esha can help with that stuff, and Esha can communicate with the other gods on a level that mortals can't, basically. So the practices of the Ash descendants, they pray internally. You're supposed to be very internal and not big about how you pray. Esha is present in all living things, so Esha doesn't need you to say things. Esha can already hear you because Esha is inherently connected to you because you are a living thing. And external prayer and grand displays, all that does is invite other gods to listen in. And other gods, they kind of suck sometimes. So there was a creature that we talked about called a Diju. You can look at it in there's a video in our playlist. It's about monsters. That one goes over the Diju. So like a Diju, this monster, is thought to be created when you pray aloud to have a child, or to be blessed with fertility. And if you pray aloud for that, then the goddess Ru, very interested, and she likes desperate people, and she really likes to toy with mortals and cause suffering and deny them what they want in cruel irony. Like, Ru sucks, you sucks. She is the goddess of curse, basically, so it's all pain and suffering is her thing, and you don't want her to hear your prayers and come up with some sort of ironic answer for them. Another goddess is the goddess Fen, and she causes a lot of issues too. She's the wolf goddess, she's the wolf steward. We've talked about her before too. She is the steward of the divine element, and she thinks very highly of herself, and because of her attachment to divinity, she's very attracted to prayers and ceremony, and she'll go and check out what you're doing, and then she'll realize that you're not actually trying to communicate to her, you're asking Esha for help, and she gets very jealous and very angry and spiteful. So that's another reason you really shouldn't pray aloud. It is then that showed Esha's descendants to the Divine Kingdom. As we know, as some of you may know, I guess someone might be new here, the Divine Kingdom kind of sucks and doesn't like those that don't worship the Lindworm. So the Descendants of Ash, a lot of them have been taken over, and it is believed that this is the fault of Then, because she, for one, she really wants the egg to hatch, and like to do so, she kind of needs the orthodoxy to spread. It's just a whole plan, you know, goddesses, whatever, they do their thing. And so she ended up revealing Esha's descendants to the kingdom of the Lindworm and kind of doomed them because she was mad. So yeah, don't do that. Under the rule of the kingdom, the worshippers of Esha, like the descendants, have been forced into like regimes of prayer. They're kind of forced to practice the orthodoxy, and it is considered incredibly dangerous to be doing this. Deep in their soul, they know that they're just making things worse. And like every day they have to invoke all 12 of the beastly gods, which is a huge mistake, they feel. But they also have to do it because the kingdom does not look kindly on those that don't worship properly. It's just become very difficult for the Descendants of Ash in these regions. And in a response to this, a lot of silent prayers have then been passed down to the followers, those that kind of remain in secret. So like these prayers have been kind of passed down that are like apologies to the different gods, sort of like apologizing for invoking them, you know, groveling for their forgiveness for being a nuisance or whatever. And they hope that because like everyone else is doing it without saying sorry, like hopefully that's enough. Like, you know, they're finicky. None of these prayers are offered to Then because you probably would make Then mad if you were like, I am so sorry for bothering you. You know, like she wants to be worshipped. Like worship the wolf goddess. She's down with that. And you're also not supposed to apologize to you because the more you draw her attention, the worse your life gets in general. And there's like no apologizing to her. She kind of just sucks on a whole. Yeah. Outside of like the Lindworm Kingdom, where being a fawn and having animal features is very frowned on, within like the traditional and like the still practicing areas of Ash descendants, like in those areas, there's a very particular look that they appreciate, and they care a lot about one's elemental makeup and are very not nice to those that fall outside of like the Silven element. Like if you aren't Silven, you cannot be a descendant of Ash. Like even if your parents are, well, they both wouldn't be. One of them would have to be a different element because your element gets passed down. Regardless, I guess that's just another reason why like there's like a strict thing going on there. Like they don't want you going outside of the fox dating pool. They're further like very particular about like what Descendant of Ash is like supposed to look like, what is the perfect descendant, and like you should really fall within this standard. So they think that you need like very stark black paws, you need like the red foxtail, you need that beautiful little white tip there, you need like a very elven face, but you should also have furry upright ears. So that is the beauty standard that you are held to within the Descendants of Ash. And most kind of fall somewhere in this, but obviously there's so much variance within people, because within this world, like, what one looks like is less so genetic and more environmentally driven, because it has to do with like one's exposure to aether. There's obviously like genetic stuff that plays a role, otherwise like why centaurs and stuff, right? But like that's the dealio here, right? And yeah, so that's the Ash worshippers. I think I have time to do one more. The last one we're going to talk about is within Feymouth, because we're still talking about Feymouth, and this is like the last major religion within Feymouth, and it's a very big one. And that is the Silven followers of the Lindworm. As I was saying, the Lindworm kingdom has like gone through this area, whoosh, whatever, right? Being awful, doing their thing. The Silven followers of the Lindworm, it's kind of more of like a sect of the Lindworm orthodoxy, but it's not orthodox practice, because the Silven followers of the Lindworm, they live in very northern regions, and like I was saying, what one looks like is very dependent on one's aether exposure, and the areas where the Silven followers live are incredibly aether dearth. There's a dearth of aether. There's just so little magic in these areas that basically no one ends up being a mage in these areas. And yeah, like within these they're like lowlands and they're far away from the mountain. And like if one has like a lot of money, like if you're one of the lords of the land and you amass a large quantity of aether crystals, like it is possible to have a child be born as a mage and grow into a mage, but even then it tends to be a lot weaker. Still, like you might end up being more of like just like a common elf who is a lot less animal in appearance, but still isn't capable of using magic. And just in general, like your average mage who ends up settling in this area and having a child, they are also more likely to just end up being a fawn anyways. And so like people in this area do tend to be a lot more animalistic looking than other sections of like even the Silven Forest, and there's just a general kind of scorn towards fawns and those that look like animals within the orthodoxy. And within traditional like orthodox practice, like fawns aren't even allowed within like temples of worship, right? So like because of this, because it is so fawn dense, like they can't even really establish proper churches, right? Because there's no mages to do that. Like there's a lot of area to cover. Like you can't just send out all the people you need, and a lot of people don't even want to go within this area because of like it's just got bad vibes, right? Like low magic, bad vibes, don't want to go there. So like within this different form of worship has formed. So it is not seen as proper because it is so fawn focused. However, like it doesn't conflict with the kingdom. Like the kingdom isn't upset that they aren't practicing. They do look down on these people, but it's also just kind of like an issue with the land. Like even if they were to settle in these lands, their population would end up being fawns, like no matter what. It's just like kind of just the environment that's there. So they can't do the thing where they kill all the people they don't like. That sucks for them, doesn't it? So let's talk about the beliefs. So the Silven followers, they believe in the Lindworm, and they have various names for the Lindworm because the area that this covers. The area in which like the practice happens, there's not a lot of like common Elvish spoken within the area. So like whenever I'm using kind of more Englishy terms, more our world terms, let's be real, like not all of them are English, whatever. But like whenever I use that, I'm using it kind of like as a loose translation to like common Elvish or divine Elvish, honestly, is what it would be. But I'm translating that, right? So they don't really speak that, most of them. There's like populations that speak Harpy, there's populations that speak Drowish, and there's a Faunish. Obviously, there's those that speak Faunish, that being the biggest, most commonly spoken. There are Crow Harpies that practice. Okay, this broke Ursula's brain. So this broke my wife's brain when I was trying to explain this to her. So let's try our best. So people in this region speak Crow Harpy. They speak the Crow Harpy language, right? However, Crow Harpies don't speak Crow Harpy in this area. So the reason for that is because there used to be populations of Crow Harpies that lived in Faymouth, but they were pushed out. So the group of people that speak Crow Harpy aren't Crow Harpies. The language just kind of remained there even when the Crow Harpies left. I think I've actually explained this before, but regardless, so there's that. However, there is a population of Crow Harpies, and they speak Drowish. So, Drow are crystal elves. So Crow Harpies, Drow, Gremlins, that's it. Those three. Crystal Harpies, Drow, and Gremlins are all crystal elves, so they all share the same element and exist on that spectrum between being a crystal mage and being a crow, basically. So Drowish is spoken within the Silven followers of the Lindworm by people that are considered to be Crow Harpies. However, they're not the same as the more well-known, more distinct population of Crow Harpies that have their own very intricate kind of societies going on. Instead, a lot of the Crow Harpies within this area, they were originally descendant from like Drow that were pushed out of the mountain crystal caves where most Drow live, a lot of the time for honestly just looking too animalistic, having too many crow features. Like, they were pushed out, they were considered to be too gremlin-like in nature, and they were pushed out. And as they settled within the area, this very low aether area, their family lineages then ended up being those that are like Crow Harpies, basically, right? They aren't the same thing, therefore, as the huge cultural group that is Crow Harpy, that has its own language group and has many like ancient traditions and history and stuff. And obviously these people have history, but they're a very small group and they speak Drowish, and they exist, and that they are considered Crow Harpies because they look like Crow Harpies, and that's kind of how we define things. However, they're like so historically and regionally different that there you go. So all of that is to explain the fact that Silven followers, they have a lot of different backgrounds and a lot of different cultural backgrounds, and just in general, it's just like a sweeping kind of term, a sweeping kind of religion. And like the fact that they're called Silven followers doesn't have to do with the fact that they have the Silven element in them. So instead, it means that they are unbalanced and more Silven-like in nature, and that's why they look like animals. That's kind of like the explanation, is they are very nature-y and not divine, so they are Silven followers. Yeah, so some words for the Lindworm. So the harpies, okay, so in harpy, it's Leiswane. In Drowish, it's Liswama. And then in Faunish, it's Leth Shidan. And regardless of what you call it, that is the Lindworm, and it is meant to be worshipped. And they believe that it created the world by swallowing the 12 stewards, and they believe that you don't worship the stewards, you instead believe in all aspects. Yeah, they believe that you don't worship the stewards, and like they believe in all of the orthodox beliefs, and they listen to the king for their divine wisdom. And where they differ, again, is because of the fawn presence, because it is not very... And they believe that they are, again, like disbalanced with the Silven element, and that is far too strong in them, and that's why they are like animals. And through worship, they really seek to kind of repent for whatever caused them to stray from the Lindworm, and they really hope to find like a balance within themselves. And yeah, a mountain separates them from the Fen worshippers, which we've talked about before, who are another group that are tolerated by the Lindworm Kingdom. And in a similar fashion, like them and the Silven followers are believed to be kind of like punished elves that strayed away from the Lindworm, and they live in kind of like this cursed area, and they are forever kind of distant from the splendor that is the Lindworm. Meanwhile, the Silven worshippers, they believe that it's the Fen worshippers' fault that they don't have magic. So they believe that the Fen worshippers snubbed the Lindworm, right? So the Fen worshippers, they worship the goddess Fen, and it is believed that they worship Fen because they refuse to believe that the Lindworm really was all that. Then the Lindworm came down and was like, I am all that, and they were like, whoa, pog. And then, unfortunately for them, too little too late, shouldn't cap on the worm, and like they were punished by the worm, and they are no longer ever able to worship it directly, and it sucks for them. And when this happened, when this blight was put upon the Fen worshippers, a dark shadow was cast from their mountain, which is where all of the Silven worshippers are, and that's what caused that. That's what got rid of all of the magic in the area, was those gosh darn Fen worshippers. So there's tension there, but there's also a mountain between them. So, you know, it's not really button heads kind of trouble that's going on. It's just like, you know, if they ever met face to face, there'd be some beef. Yeah, so how do they practice? Let's just do this real quick. So they practice the same way as the Lindworm. You know, they go to their church, they do their daily prayers, they do 12 prayers, one for each element except Silven, because they have too much of that in them. And then they have a final prayer to the Lindworm, which is a prayer of repentance. And there's a very strong focus on repenting, and there's a very, very strong focus on trying to make your children be born as mages. It's near impossible to do. There's just not the aether there to do it. I think that's all of it. That's all I have to say. And that concludes Feymouth, guys. We got through it. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for your comments. Again, tell me if you want to go north or south. We'll go. We'll take an adventure. It'll be a while. I'll keep asking you this question and give you time to think about it, but please do comment. It gives you something fun to comment, which will boost this in the algorithm, and everyone else can be confused because they haven't watched all the videos leading up to this. It's just, sometimes I talking about these videos and I have no idea how to pitch them to someone who doesn't continually watch all of these. So, this is like a home one where we get to chill together and know what I'm talking about. Yeah, thank you for watching. See you in the next one. I'm gonna record it right now.